May 1963, Beverly Hilton Ballroom, 2 hours before the panel. Kirk Douglas stood alone in the green room, staring at his notes. 46 years old. 2 Oscar nominations. Fresh off Spartacus. The most intense actor in Hollywood. He'd prepared for this moment. Rehearsed talking points. Prepared answers. This wasn't just a panel discussion. This was his thesis on craft. Real actors transform, he muttered to himself. Movie stars just show up. He straightened his bow tie, checked his reflection. The face staring back was sharp, determined, ready. His agent had warned him. Don't turn this into a lecture, Kirk. It's supposed to be a conversation. Kirk dismissed it. Someone needs to say it. We're losing respect for the craft. The door opened. Dean Martin walked in, relaxed, tuxedo perfect, hair slicked back, no notes, no preparation visible. Kirk turned, extended his hand. Professional smile. Dean, good to see you. Dean shook it. Firm, brief. Kirk. No warmth, no hostility, just acknowledgement. Kirk tried again. Didn't know you'd be on the panel. Dean smiled. That easy smile. Peck canceled. They called yesterday. Figured why not? Yesterday. Kirk had been preparing for weeks. Should be interesting, Kirk said. Good to have different perspectives. Dean nodded. Always is. A makeup artist entered, touched up Dean's face. He sat still, didn't check the mirror, didn't fuss. Kirk watched. Dean made everything look effortless, even sitting still. It bothered Kirk deeply, because Kirk worked, bled, suffered. And guys like Dean just showed up. 5 minutes, a production assistant called. Dean stood, buttoned his jacket. See you out there. He walked out. Kirk stood alone again, staring at his notes. He'd make his point tonight. Someone had to. The door closed. The Beverly Hilton Ballroom glittered. 800 seats, all filled. Studio executives in the front rows, Warner Brothers, MGM, Paramount, Columbia. The men who decided careers with a phone call. Jack Warner sat third row center, arms crossed, watching. Behind the executives, agents. The William Morris men, the MCA Sharks, every major player represented. Behind them, press, Variety, Hollywood Reporter, LA Times, New York Times. Pencils ready, notebooks open. And cameras, 2 CBS cameras, 1 NBC recording everything. Billy Wilder stood at the podium waiting. Oscar-winning director, sharp wit. He'd moderated panels before but never one with this much voltage. The American Film Institute had billed this as the art of screen acting. But everyone knew what it really was. A statement, a declaration of who mattered in Hollywood. Who defined quality? Who set the standard? The panel filed out. Robert Wise first, director of West Side Story, fresh off his Best Director Oscar. Then Kirk Douglas, confident stride, acknowledging faces in the crowd. Then Dean Martin, casual, relaxed, like he was walking into a lounge, not a career-defining moment. The whispers started immediately. Row 5, 2 studio executives leaned close. Kirk's been doing press all month about serious actors. This should be interesting. Row 8, an agent to his client. Watch Kirk. He's on a mission. The room understood. This wasn't a discussion. This was a trial. And Dean Martin hadn't been told he was the defendant. The lights dimmed slightly. Spotlight on the panel. Billy Wilder tapped the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. The room settled. Pencils poised. Cameras rolling. Reputations on the line. The first 30 minutes went smoothly. Questions about working with directors. About preparation. About the difference between stage and screen. Kirk dominated. Talked about his process. How he researched Champion for months. Lived with boxers, learned to move like a fighter. How he spent weeks preparing for Lust for Life, studying Van Gogh's paintings, trying to understand madness. You have to disappear into the role, Kirk said. You can't just be Kirk Douglas playing a character. You have to become that character. Dean sat quiet, listening, not engaging. Billy Wilder tried to bring Dean in. Dean, you worked with Howard Hawks on Rio Bravo. How did you prepare? Dean smiled. I read the script. Showed up. Howard told me where to stand. That was about it. The audience laughed. Charming. Classic Dean. Kirk didn't laugh. His jaw tightened. Just slightly, Robert Wise noticed. Shifted in his seat. In the front row, Jack Warner leaned forward. He'd seen this before. Tension disguised as conversation. Then came the question that changed everything. A film student in the back. Young? Earnest. Mr. Douglas. Martin, what separates a movie star from an actor? Kirk's eyes lit up. This was his theme, his crusade. That's an important question, Kirk said. A movie star has charisma, charm, a persona people pay to see. John Wayne is always John Wayne. That's valuable. That's a skill. He paused. Let it breathe. But an actor transforms. Marlon Brando becomes Terry Malloy. Laurence Olivier becomes Hamlet. You don't see the actor. You see the character. That's the difference. Movie stars entertain. Actors create art. Billy Wilder felt it coming, tried to move on. Dean, your thoughts? Dean shrugged. I don't think about it much. I do my job. Audience decides if it works. Kirk couldn't let it go. Leaned forward. See, that's exactly the difference. Dean makes people laugh. That's a skill. I respect that. But acting, real acting, that requires something deeper. He turned, looked at Dean directly. The room felt it. Temperature drop. Robert Wise froze. Billy Wilder's hand moved toward the microphone. Too late. You have to live the role, suffer for it, bleed for it. You have to ask yourself, am I serving the character or am I serving myself? Dean's face didn't change, but his hand resting on the table pressed down, just slightly. Knuckles white for half a second, then relaxed. Kirk kept going, interpreting the silence as agreement, as validation. Dean shows up, reads the lines, goes to the golf course by 3 o'clock. And it works for him. He's charming. People love him, but that's not acting. That's personality. In row 3, Jack Warner's eyes narrowed. In row 7, a Variety reporter underlined something. Twice. Robert Wise shifted uncomfortably, glanced at Billy Wilder. Do something. Billy Wilder tried to interrupt. Well, Kirk, different approaches. Kirk cut him off, voice rising. Righteous. No, Billy. We need to distinguish between movie stars and actors, between entertainment and art. This matters. The craft matters. He looked at Dean again. Smiled. The kind of smile that comes before a knife. Dean's talented. Of course he is, but let's be honest. He's essentially a nightclub act. He sings. He tells jokes. He's entertaining. That's what he does. The word landed. Entertaining. Not artist. Not actor. Entertain. Audience froze. Dean Martin sat perfectly still. In row 1, an MGM executive whispered to his assistant. Did he just? Yeah. He did? Robert Wise stared at the table. Billy Wilder gripped the podium. The cameras kept rolling. Kirk, interpreting Dean's silence as surrender, kept going. Couldn't stop now. Had to finish the point. I've seen Dean's work. Some came running, Rio Bravo, good films. But Dean isn't transforming. He's being Dean. Being charming. That's a movie star. Not an actor creating art. He sat back, satisfied. The point made, the distinction clear. The room would understand now. Dean Martin didn't move, didn't blink, but something shifted, a muscle in his jaw. A breath held 1 second too long, then released. Control, perfect control. He wasn't angry. Anger would have given Kirk the fight he wanted. Dean was something worse, done. In the audience, Frank Sinatra sat in the back row, arms crossed. Watching, he knew that look. He'd seen Dean walk away from fights before, but never like this. Never publicly. Billy Wilder cleared his throat, tried to salvage it. Dean, would you like to respond? Dean didn't answer immediately. Let the silence build. Let Kirk's words hang in the air. Let everyone absorb what had just happened. Then, slowly, he raised his hand. Gentle, polite, almost casual. Billy, can I respond to that? His voice was calm. No edge, no anger. Just a question. Wilder nodded quickly, relieved. Of course, Dean. Please. The audience leaned forward, every eye on Dean, waiting for the explosion, the defense, the anger. Dean leaned forward, slowly. every movement calculated. He didn't look at Kirk, looked at Billy Wilder, then at the audience. He spoke clearly, calmly. 3 words. Check the receipts. He stood up, straightened his jacket, walked toward the stage exit, side doge left. No explanation, no defense, no anger, no looking back, just 3 words, and gone. The side exit door closed. Soft click. The room erupted, not in applause, not in boos, in shock. Stunned, electric silence. Then someone laughed, nervous, disbelieving. Then scattered applause. Then half the room was clapping. Standing, Kirk sat frozen, mouth slightly open, face flushed. He'd been prepared for Dan to defend himself, to argue, to get emotional, to prove Kirk's point about nightclub performers. He wasn't prepared for dismissal, for 3 words that ended the conversation. Robert Wise stared at the empty chair. In 40 years in Hollywood, he'd never seen someone win an argument by leaving it. Billy Wilder stood, shaken but professional. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that's a natural place to end. Thank you. Kirk tried to speak, leaned toward the microphone. Didn't mean to. Billy cut him off. Firm. Kirk, let's take this backstage. The camera stopped rolling. The lights came up. Jack Warner stood, walked out, didn't look at the stage. The Whisper network activated immediately. Row to row, agent to agent, executive to executive. Did you see that? 3 words. Check the receipts, Daw. Kirk just ended his own career. Dean didn't even fight back. The ballroom emptied. But the story was just beginning. Backstage, reporters swarmed Dean. Flashbulbs popping, notebooks out, questions shouting over each other. Dean, what did you mean by that? Dean didn't slow down. Kept walking. Exactly what I said. Are you saying Kirk's wrong about? I'm not saying anything about Kirk. I said what I said. Will you respond to his comments about? Dean stopped, turned, looked at her calm. I already responded. He kept walking, faster now. Dean, do you consider yourself an actor or a movie star? No answer. Dean, will this affect your relationship with? No answer. He reached the exit. His driver waiting. Car running. Dean got in. Door closed. The car pulled away. No press conference. No clarification. No elaboration. Just 3 words, left behind like a grenade. Kirk stayed on stage, tried to finish the panel, but the energy was gone. The audience trickled out. Robert Wise and Billy Wilder sat with him. Uncomfortable silence. That was rough, Kirk, Wise finally said. I was making a point about the craft. You called him a nightclub act. On stage. In front of everyone. On camera. Kirk's face went red. I didn't mean it as an insult, I meant. Doesn't matter what you meant. Matters what you said. Billy Wilder lit a cigarette. Offered one to Kirk. You wanted to make a point about serious acting. You made a different point entirely. What point? That you don't understand the difference between effort and effectiveness. Kirk went quiet. The room emptied. He sat alone on the stage, staring at Dan's empty chair. Kirk went back to the Beverly Hills Hotel, Suite 412, furious. Not at Dean, at himself. He'd prepared for an argument, for Dean to get defensive, for Dean to prove Kirk's point by losing his temper. That would have shown everyone. The nightclub performer. The unemotional. Unprofessional. Dean hadn't argued. He'd dismissed Kirk entirely. With 3 words, Kirk paced, loosened his bow tie, poured a scotch. The phone rang. His agent. Kirk, we need to talk. Not now. Yes, now. Do you know what you just did? I made a point about. You insulted Dean Martin on camera, in front of 800 people, studio heads, press, everyone. I didn't insult him. I distinguish between. Kirk, stop. Just stop. This is bad. Kirk hung up, poured another scotch, sat by the window. Hollywood stretched out below, lights everywhere. He'd come to this town with nothing, worked harder than anyone, bled for every role. And guys like Dean just showed up, made millions, got respect they didn't earn. It wasn't fair. The phone rang again. He didn't answer. Morning would bring clarity. Morning would prove he was right. Morning would show everyone he was wrong. The next morning, Variety hit the 6 a.m. newsstands across Hollywood. The headline, if he hakes ekt ripes tree dn mar tvs krk ogelas ata fi pani l. Inside, the Variety newsroom had worked all night. The editors knew immediately this was the story, not just gossip, not just celebrity drama. This was Hollywood eating itself. The numbers team pulled box office data. 1962 gross receipts. Dean Martin films combined $48 million. Kirk Douglas films combined $12 million. Dunn had outgrossed Kirk 4-1, but the article went deeper. The research team pulled reviews, critical reception, awards, Dean Martin's dramatic performances, critical reception Rio Bravo. The New York Times understated brilliance tall. Variety, Martin proves he's more than a crooner. Some came running. The Los Angeles Times. Martin's portrayal is a masterclass in restraint. The Young Lions, The Hollywood Reporter, Martin stands toe-to-toe with Brando and Clift. The article's conclusion, written by the chief film critic, Dean Martin may play a drunk on stage, but his film work shows remarkable range. He's not playing Dan Martin. He's disappearing into characters while making it look effortless. That's not a nightclub act. That's mastery. Kirk Douglas may not understand the difference, but audiences do. The receipts don't lie. The article spread through Hollywood like wildfire. By 8 a.m., every studio executive had read it. By 9 a.m., every agent. By 10 a.m., every actor. The phone started ringing. Kirk's agent called. "Have you seen Variety?" Kirk had. "Read it 3 times. Stomach sinking." "The numbers don't lie, Kirk. Dean's a bigger draw. Always has been. This isn't about numbers. It's about craft. In Hollywood, numbers are craft. You just told the highest grossing dramatic actor in town he's a nightclub act." On camera, Kirk hung up, stared at the article. The numbers, the reviews. Dean wasn't just a movie star. He was a damn good actor who made it look easy. And Kirk had called him a nightclub act. On camera, on record, in front of everyone who mattered. Kirk picked up the phone, hands shaking slightly, dialed Dean's number. Ring. Ring. No answer. He tried again. Dean's assistant answered, professional. "Cool. Martin residence? This is Kirk Douglas. Is Dean available?" Pause. Long pause. "Mr. Martin is unavailable. Mr. Douglas." "Can you tell him I called? I'd like to speak with him. I'll give him the message." Click. She hung up. Kirk sat holding the phone. Dialed again. "Same assistant. I need to speak with Dean. It's important." A miss error. "Martin is still unavailable. When will he be available?" "I don't have that information, Mr. Douglas." Click. Kirk tried a 3rd time. Different voice answered. Dean's manager. "Kirk, he doesn't want to talk to you. I need to apologize." "Then put it in writing." Click. Kirk sat at the hotel desk, pulled out paper, started writing, started again. Crossed it out. Too defensive, too explanatory, too much ego. He walked downstairs, found a Western Union office in the lobby, wrote it out, simple, direct. "DN, I was out of line. Meant no offense. Professional respect." Kirk, he sent it, went back to his room, waited, no response. By evening, still nothing. He sent another telegram. "DN, would like to speak. Explain what I meant. Call when you can." Kirk, no response. Kirk spent 3 days waiting, checking with the front desk, calling Dean's house. Nothing. On the 4th day, his agent called. "Stop calling Dean. You're making it worse. I need to apologize. You already did. He's not accepting. Let it go. I can't just." "Kirk, listen to me. Dan's not angry. That would be better. He's indifferent. You don't exist to him anymore. That's the punishment." Kirk hung up. Indifference. Worse than anger. Worse than a fight. Dean had erased him. With 3 words. 3 weeks later, May 28, 1963. Kirk walked into Chasen's restaurant. Late dinner. Solo. He needed to get out. Needed to move forward. The maitre d' recognized him. "Mr. Douglas. Table for 1. Please." He was led through the restaurant. Red leather booths, low lighting, old Hollywood glamour. Then he saw them. Corner booth. Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., Frank Sinatra. The rat-paffing, drinks on the table, cigar-laxed. Dean looked up. Saw Kirk, no reaction, just looked, then back to Frank. Kept talking. Kirk hesitated. He could leave. Ask for a different table. Walk out. But Kirk Douglas didn't run from confrontation. He walked over. The entire restaurant noticed. Conversation stopped. Forks paused mid-air. Everyone watching. Kirk reached the booth. Dean looked up. Calm, not angry, not cold, just done. He took a sip of his drink, let Kirk stand there. Sammy glanced at Frank. Frank watched. Silent. Dean finally spoke. Nothing to talk about, Kirk. You said what you think. I said what I know. We're good. Kirk tried again. Desperate now. I didn't mean to imply you weren't a serious actor. I was trying to make a point about process. Dean interrupted, not rudely, just final. Kirk, you won 2 Oscar nominations. Congratulations. That's real. I respect that. He paused. Looked Kirk in the eye. I won the audience. Different games. Both valid. We're good. He turned back to Frank and Sammy. Picked up his cigar. Conversation over. Kirk stood there, waiting for Dean to look back. Dean didn't. Sammy raised his glass. Small gesture. Polite dismissal. Kirk walked away. Back through the restaurant. Every eye on him. He could feel it. The judgment. The whisper network activating. By tomorrow everyone would know. Kirk Douglas apologized. Dean Martin dismissed him. Again, he left Chasen's. Didn't eat. Drove home. He'd been dismissed. Again. And this time, in front of the Rat Pack, in front of Hollywood royalty, in front of everyone. Back at the booth, Frank leaned toward Dean. Quiet. You didn't have to let him off that easy. Dean sipped his drink. I didn't let him off. I dismissed him. Bigger punishment. Sammy laughed. 3 words. That's all it took. Dean shrugged. Kirk talked for an hour. I talked for 3 words. One of us made a point. Frank smiled, raised his glass. 2 receipts. They drank. The phrase spread through Hollywood. By morning, everyone knew about Chasen's. By afternoon, check the receipts had become code, shortened. A complete argument in 3 words, agent negotiating your fee. Check the receipts. Studio questioning your draw, check the receipts. Critic calling your work shallow, check the receipts. It entered the Hollywood lexicon. Permanent. Proof, results, evidence. Kirk Douglas never made another public comment about movie stars versus actors. When asked about acting, he talked about his own process, his preparation, his dedication. Never compared himself to others. Never dismissed anyone's approach. Never mentioned Dean Martin. The footage from that AFI panel disappeared. Warehouse fire lost. During a move, it surfaced briefly in 1983. Someone found it in a CBS vault. The AFI declined to show it. Too controversial. Too embarrassing. The footage disappeared again, permanently. But the story lived on, past agent to agent, actor to actor, studio to studio. Dean Martin never mentioned the incident, not in interviews, not in his memoir, not even to close friends. When asked about Kirk Douglas, Dean said simply, great actor, intense guy. We were different. That's Hollywood. No bitterness, no grudge. He'd said what he needed to say. 3 words. The receipts had spoken. Kirk Douglas wrote his autobiography in 1988. 500 pages. 30 years of Hollywood stories. He mentioned Dean Martin once. 1 sentence. Buried on page 287. Dean Martin was underrated as an actor. He made difficult work look easy, which is the hardest thing to do. That was Kirk's apology. 25 years late. Hidden in a memoir. Dean never acknowledged it, never commented, never responded. The receipts had already spoken. In 1963, Lear, final. May 1963, Kirk Douglas called Dean Martin essentially a nightclub act. Dean's response changed how Hollywood argues. Check the receipts wasn't about money. It was about proof. Kirk measured success by Oscar nominations, by critical acclaim, by method acting and suffering. Dean measured success by sold-out shows, by audience connection, by box office returns. Both metrics valid, both men talented, different philosophies. Kirk represented old Hollywood, suffering for your art, critics as gatekeepers, preparation as proof of seriousness. Dean represented new Hollywood, the audience as final judge, making it look effortless as the highest skill, results over process. Kirk worked harder than anyone, prepared longer, bled for every role, became the character, lived the pain. Dean worked smarter, understood his strengths, played to them, made millions, never broke a sweat. Kirk's films won awards, critical praise, film school classes studying his performances decades later. Dean's films made money, consistently. For decades, audiences returned, again and again. Both men achieved what they wanted. Different goals, different victories, different definitions of success. But in May 1963, Kirk made a mistake. He confused his metric with the only metric. He assumed that because Dean didn't suffer visibly, Dean wasn't working. That because Dean made it look easy, it wasn't art. That because Dean didn't talk about his process, he didn't have one. Kirk spent an hour explaining his philosophy. Dean spent 3 words proving none of that mattered to the audience. The audience doesn't care about your process. They care about the result. They don't care if you suffered. They care if you made them feel something. They don't care how hard you worked. They care if it worked. Kirk wanted credit for the work behind the work. Dean wanted credit for the work itself. Kirk wanted you to see how hard it was. Dean wanted you to forget he was working at all. Both legacies matter, both men brilliant. Both changed cinema. But only one understood. You don't argue with people who've already decided you're wrong. You just point at the scoreboard and walk away. Check the receipts became a permanent part of Hollywood vocabulary. From Eastwood to Schwarzenegger to Dwayne Johnson, whenever critics dismiss commercial success, the answer remains the same. Show the numbers. Prove it. Results over rhetoric. Dean Martin created a phrase that transcended him. Kirk Douglas created performances that changed acting forever. Both contributions valid. Both men legends. Both remembered. But in that ballroom, only one man understood the power of 3 words. Kirk Douglas spent an hour explaining why he's a serious actor. Dean Martin spent 3 words proving he's a successful one. The receipts spoke. Load. Final. May 1963. Dean Martin ended Kirk Douglas with 3 words. So here's my question: was Dean right to walk away? Comment below. Don't just say, Dean was right, or Kirk was right. Tell me why. Tell me what you would have done. Your words, your perspective. Go, go.